People saw 3 dots and they went, oh, it's going to get better forever. And now people see 3 dots that look kind of like this and say it's going to be terrible forever. Well, it's not. It will be a trough, will come up, things will get better, money will flow back into the coffers of the redevelopment agency. But that alone is not going to be enough to carry us out of and back into where we need to be. So optimistically, however, I believe if we can put something like this in place in a way that's fiscally responsible for the schools, works for the county, and works for the city, that we can have a reliable, steady source of making investments in your neighborhood guided by the people in those neighborhoods. So that's an awful lot to digest in one gulp, but I wanted to put both the budget in front of you and the idea of where we think the bridge to the future is. Because without that bridge, this is indeed a very, very bleak budget.
Excuse me. Speaking up on behalf of the schools, how can you take more out of the schools? I mean, you just said.
Let me talk about that.
And it's just
The schools, there are approximately 19 school districts in the city of San Jose. Within strong neighborhoods, I don't have the exact count yet, but we have many of those school districts. School districts in California fall into 2 basic categories. 2 categories. They're either what are called basic aid school districts, or they are non-basic aid school districts. And the distinction is, if they are basic aid school districts, it means that their property tax revenue is such that the state does not give them beyond anything more than basic aid. So they are essentially self-supporting. They are not supported by and large by the state. So they depend on their property tax revenues for their existence. Non-basic aid school districts, on the other hand, are collecting property taxes, but below the level which the state says is adequate. The state then backfills that gap with something called ERAF, an ERAF shift, Education Resource Augmentation Fund shift. And some of that comes from sources such as the redevelopment agency and other local jurisdictions. So in the states, in the school districts that are non-basic aid, the effect of changes in property tax is covered by the state. Now somebody has to pay it, but the individual school district is not affected by that loss. In the basic aid school districts, they are affected. We have only one basic aid school district in the Strong Neighborhoods area, that's Campbell. And we would be in discussions with Campbell to see how we could make sure, ideally, that this kind of agreement would work for them as well. Because the last thing we want to be doing is pitting the neighborhoods against the schools and taking the lunch money from Johnny to pay for the community center for Jane.
so when you say a district, not east side, is
Can we
that?
hold questions until we get this finished? We have a long agenda to get through, and we may answer your questions before he finishes talking.
So would you like me to go, we have the slide, that's for later?
Yeah, that's the committee introduction.
Okay, that's the committee introduction. So I'm not, that's the main, that actually is my main piece on the Strong Neighborhoods update at this point. I guess the thing I would like to say in closing is that as hard as today has been, and as grim as the news that I have just laid out to you is, I believe that we have a business plan which will take us through 2 years. I believe that I'm going to be able to implement that business plan with your leadership and our staff that we have on board. The cuts that we made, as hard as they were also strategically made in the tail, not the teeth, so that they did not affect staff who are going to be out in the field in the neighborhoods, and they did not affect organizing staff who are going to be working citywide. So what I would submit to you is that this 2 years that we have in front of us, less than 2 years already, really, 20 months, is the time that we are challenged to do good work in the neighborhoods of crisis, mobilize neighborhood action, and make this real. I believe if we can do that at the same time that we're working on the question of tax increment, we will both have the political support and the financial resources necessary to continue. And I'm confident, optimistic that we can do that, and I'm committed to making that happen.
Okay. Thanks, Kip. If you want to hang around, fine, but I know you got family to get to. We're not going to do Q&A until the end.
Okay.
It'll be like 8 o'clock, because I think some of this other stuff is going to go long. You're certainly welcome to be here, because I know there's a lot of questions, but we got to jam through this stuff tonight.
I'll
The
take
main,
these up here then. I'll get you.
should we hand these out?
Yeah, those are, anybody's interested, this is the full packet for the detail sheets on Strong Neighborhoods.
How many copies are going? Well, we'll deal with it.
I can say.
Our main purpose tonight is to split up into what we're calling the 4 working groups of this organization. This is where all of the work is going to get done. The people sitting around the table right now are the board. We'll meet every 3 months and we'll get reports from the working groups so that we all know what's going on. But the real work, all the innovation, all of the effort is going to be in these working groups. To be sitting at this table, you have to be a representative of a CNAC. To do the real work, you have to be a citizen of the city of San Jose. In fact, we probably don't even have that rule on there. So what we're going to do, Heather is going to zip through. Steve, there's a PDF on here that has, do you know the name of it, Heather?
I think it's the only one. I can't
Four
see
goals,
it.
top
There
one.
you go.
Heather is going to give an overview of the 4 goals that we set back in March, I think it was. We'll zip through, give a little quick thing, then we're going to split up into the 4 corners of the room. So if you have an interest in working on the neighborhoods in crisis, you're going to go with the staffer over in a corner somewhere and talk about neighborhoods in crisis. If you're interested in connecting resources to the priorities, you're going to go into another corner and discuss those things. This is not a time to really talk about the work, it's to kick around a few ideas. There'll be somebody in charge of each corner, and what we're going to do is sign up people on the committee. What we do want you to do is to pick one person who will kind of be the coordinator for the first meeting. So somebody who will put together the list, who will find a location, set a time and a date that's acceptable to everything, get the first meeting going, okay? Then when you're finished with all of that, and you have the meeting, you'll pick a chairman for that working group. So this is an interim step just to get things going. Harvey?
I have a problem with this, just to some degree, because we don't know which are the neighborhoods in crisis. And
You don't have to be in crisis if that's where you want to work.
Well, I understand that, but you know, I want to put my work into something that is going to benefit my neighborhood.
Well, then let me jump ahead down to job descriptions, because one of the most important things tonight is that the 19 people that sit at this table, when you walk in the door and sit down, you take off your gardener hat. Hey, hang on, let me finish. Okay, when we're here, we have to think citywide, okay? The Strong Neighborhoods program has to extend out beyond the NACs and into other part of the cities anyway. So when we're sitting here, we don't advocate for our neighborhoods. We have our interests, certainly. And there's nothing you can sign up for crisis tonight and switch it later on. It's not really that important. But when we're talking here, we have to think of the whole city. When you go to the working groups, then you put your neighborhood hat back on. But it's critical that we focus outside of our own special interests right now. Otherwise, this thing is never going to get flying. So, to answer your question, Harvey, I mean, we don't know who the neighborhoods in crisis are. If your neighborhood gets into it later on and you want to be assigned and you want to go into it, happy to join. You know?
Sorry?
Probably as soon as next week.
Oh, okay.
So, Heather, are you going to give the overview, or are there others going to?
There are others who are going to do, but
Okay.
I can start.
These are the 4. As soon as we're done, this is going to be real quick. We're going to split up into the 4 groups and get people signed up.
Before I begin, hello everybody, I'm Heather King. I'll be working in the Mobilizing Neighborhood Action quadrant. But I also had the opportunity to work with Pete and Sandra and Elsie on the formation of the CNAC and the staff role in partnering with the CNAC as you guys identify your objectives and goals and priorities. So I want to, before I start talking about mobilizing neighborhood action, make clear the role of staff in this, which is to support you and to be a counterpart and a partner, but not a leader. We're really looking to you to identify what's important and to advocate and come up with your agenda and these 4 goals, and to partner with us and to look for us to coach and support and guide you in completing your goals. So that being said, mobilizing neighborhood action is a Strong Neighborhood citywide charge to get more people engaged in neighborhood action. The way that we're going to do that is these 4 things. We're going to focus on citywide leadership development and training. What should be stated is when the business plan update was adopted by the City Council / Redevelopment Agency Board, we brought the Neighborhood Development Center, the existing Neighborhood Development Center, under the Strong Neighborhoods umbrella. So what you're going to see in the Mobilizing Neighborhood Action corner or goal are a lot of the same programs or deepening of programs that the Neighborhood Development Center offered citywide. So in citywide leadership development and training, we're looking at training tracks to build skill. We recognize that there are a lot of organizations across the city and county that offer leadership development for neighborhood groups. And so we want to make sure that we are both complementing and adding new trainings and leadership opportunities for neighborhood groups, both strong neighborhoods, CNACs, and neighborhood associations across the city. The second thing we're going to be focusing on is strong neighborhoods communication. Currently, the Neighborhood Center sends out a monthly e-blast. I'm sure some of you get that. Also, since the business plan update, we've been sending out strong neighborhood updates. Hopefully you all get those as well. We're going to be looking at, does our website work for neighborhood groups? What kind of information do neighborhood groups need? How are you getting monthly information? Are we maximizing tools that we could maximize? Should we be sending text messages out? Should we be having some kind of social media program? Is there some way that we should be building a platform where neighbors can talk to one another through technology? That's the second thing we're thinking about. The third is neighborhood action funding. This is the ever popular CAP grant. That was run through the NDC and will continue to be run through the Mobilizing Neighborhood Action goal. And the fourth is thinking about resources for neighborhood action. How do we get in your hands the things that are most important to running your organization? So that is tools, shovels, rakes, cones, vests to do service in your neighborhood, access to a copier so that you can run the agendas that you need to run. Do we need to think about postage? How are you currently getting things out? Is that an effective use of city resources? So again, Mobilizing Neighborhood Action is citywide focused, thinking about supporting neighborhood groups to accomplish their own priorities in their neighborhood. Any questions about that? Okay, then I'll turn it over to one of my staff. Great. Sure, you can.
I have 2 minutes, right?
Yes.
I'm going to hand these out and then talk while they're being handed out, if that's okay. For those of you that don't know, my name is Paul Pereira, and I am working both with Anna Lay, if Anna, you can raise your hand, and Jose Villarreal, and we're the 3 neighborhood team managers that will be focusing on the neighborhoods in crisis. And as Harvey alluded to, the neighborhoods in crisis, the list isn't out yet, but it will probably be public next week. So there are some things that we've learned over the last 10 years that have even been recognized and written about over and over again. And one of the things is how do you get people to become more engaged? You get them to feel safer about their neighborhood. And how do you get them to feel safer about their neighborhood? You get them to feel like they're in a clean neighborhood. One of the things that I think that we can all be very proud of in the city of San Jose, if anybody familiar with the National Social Capital Benchmark Survey? It's a survey that's been done, well, Jose, yeah. It's a survey that's been done about every other year and done by about 30,000 cities across the country. And the interesting thing is in the city of San Jose, people, it's a very small percentage, usually about 4% of the population in San Jose say that they don't get involved because they don't feel safe to get involved. You compare that with some other cities like the city of Richmond, where 28% of the population says that they're not engaged because they don't feel safe.
How many are engaged?
28% in the city of Richmond, 4% in the city of San Jose is the average. So thinking about that and thinking about how and who is involved in your community, what is important to you? It's important that your neighborhood is clean, because if your neighborhood is clean, you will feel like your neighborhood is safer. If the streetlights are on, if there isn't dumped couches or mattresses in the Hoffman Viamonte neighborhood, and if people feel that way, they're more likely to get involved and become engaged. And then guess what? More people will become engaged and help you keep your neighborhood cleaner and safer, and more people will become engaged, and it's cyclical, and I think we all recognize that. So there are some neighborhoods in San Jose that need some help, and our focus is going to be in those neighborhoods and to be focused on making sure that people are engaged and that those neighborhoods are cleaner and safer and stay clean and safe. That said, that's the reason why we are going to be flexible, mobile, field-based teams. We're not, as Kip said, we're not going to be the tail of the group. We are the tooth of the group. We are the ones that are out there. We will have access to trucks. We will have access to tools, and we'll be working with you folks in those neighborhoods in crisis to stabilize them and to keep them stable. Anybody around during Project Crackdown?